And even now, my daughter is so trained to where sometimes she's really not that tired, especially because she's a little older, but they still have to take naps at school. She will literally lay in her bed for maybe an hour sometimes and just hang out, but she stays in there. And I tell parents that and they're like, what? My kid would be out like 10 times. But she is like so well trained now to where that's just what we do. My daughter's name is Hayden. At the time I started, she was almost 2.5. And the whole reason we started this program was because my daughter slept through the night pretty much from like 8 months until 2.5. And she was a great sleeper. I sleep trained her at 8 months. She was awesome. And then one night she decided to try and crawl out of her crib and successfully did that. And then realized, well, if I crawl out of my crib, mom's going to come back in. And then it was like game over. So we had to like quickly transition and get her out of her crib and into a big girl bed. I thought, no big deal. Like she slept through the night her whole life. This will be great. So in my mind, I was like, I'll just shut the door. Like she'll go to sleep. She lost her mind. All of a sudden she's crying for us and wanting us to be with her and all this stuff. And I was newly pregnant at the time. So I was exhausted and I just didn't have the energy to deal with it. So my husband and I started sleeping in her bed the first couple nights thinking like, well, this will just get her used to it. As everybody knows, that's the beginning of the end. I reached out to a ton of people, including the place I originally sleep trained her with, and they just didn't specialize in toddlers, and training a toddler is very different than training a baby. I think it's harder because you can tell they really like miss you and want you there. So it was a struggle. So then I don't really know how I found Jessica, but when I did, she offered the money back guarantee. And I was like, at this point, like, we'll try anything. And we tried it. I took her class and I would say I noticed drastic changes within the first week, probably. But I think to truly sleep through the night without waking up would probably maybe 3 to 4 weeks. So I do think it was a longer process, but we continued to see improvements with it to where I felt comfortable sticking with it. And it was much better than she had been. Because I was having to sleep with her every night. And then I'd leave. And then if she woke up, she'd come back to my room and want me. I noticed that ended quickly. It was the middle of the night wake ups that kind of lingered on a little bit. And then Jessica was great too, because that was my struggle. And I was emailing her and in the Facebook group, and she would respond back really fast and give me some tips. I think the biggest thing is the meeting. And even though she was not even 2.5 at the time, I was really worried she wasn't going to understand what that meant. But she did, she understood that if you don't follow this, then I'm going to leave. And also she didn't want my husband to put her to bed. And that was a problem too, because I was like, we're going to have a baby, like who I'm going to have to be with, the baby while you still need to go to bed. So that was part of her plan. Who do you want to pick, mom or dad for bed? That was like the first thing on her agenda that we made. It just allowed me to like have time to clean up the dishes and, take my shower by myself and, without having to like rush to get into bed with her. It allowed time for me and my husband to hang out and catch up after our work days. I am a much happier person when I sleep. And when I wasn't sleeping, it was really trickling down to our whole family, so, I was more irritable. My daughter was grumpy. My husband's grumpy. So it's just when everyone sleeps, it's just much, much better for everyone. She's a little older now. She's almost 4. So she can manage not taking naps and things like that. But, at the time when she was 2.5, yeah, it was night and day. And sometimes you have to skip a nap. So if you're skipping a nap and she wasn't sleeping at night, we knew the next day was going to be terrible. So at least if you skip a nap, but you're going to bed at a reasonable time, it's a game changer. And even now my daughter is so trained to where sometimes she's really not that tired, especially because she's a little older, but they still have to take naps at school. She will literally lay in her bed for maybe an hour sometimes and just hang out, but she stays in there. And I tell parents that and they're like, what? My kid would be out like 10 times. And I'm like, I don't really care if you don't go to sleep yet, but this is bedtime, So, but she is like so well trained now to where that's just what we do. I love that Jessica finds a way to meet your toddler where they are, whether, and is geared towards that. And there just really isn't much in the market for that, at least not that I found. So finding a sleep consultant that really meets where your child is at. But I also think you need support. And that was something else too. Like I've used other programs to sleep train my babies, and you don't have a Facebook group, which sometimes you feel like right now, my son is not following the path that, the plan. And it would be so nice if I had a group to be like, is anyone else's kid doing this? Is this normal? Did you notice this after? Because my daughter was like textbook, and he's just not doing that. So I'm like, are we doing it wrong? Because, it's just nice to have support. I think, you need to be mentally ready to commit to something. And I also think once you do it, you need to commit to it, because if you're wishy-washy, your kid's they're going to sense that and feel it out.